Iran rains missiles on Israel. Middle East war clouds darken. Israel vows to make Iran pay. Iran warns of bigger retaliation. Brink of another world war.
What's happening in Iran at this point of time, hours after unleashing 181 ballistic missiles into its arch nemesis in the region, Israel? Is Iran just sitting around waiting for an Israeli response, or could there be more from Iran's side as well? We're going to decode that right here on 6 p.m. Prime in our ongoing war coverage. Thanks as always for being with me, Shiv Aroor. And we've got breaking news updates coming in from Lebanon amidst the escalation following the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, the Hezbollah chief. A barrage of about 40 rockets have just been fired by a Hezbollah position at a position of the Israeli army in northern Israel. This has been announced just now by the Israeli Defense Forces. The military says several drones were launched at western Galilee but were shot down by Israeli air defenses, and another drone launched impacted in upper Galilee. These are all parts of northern Israel. Meanwhile, the IDF says it carried out dozens more strikes on Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon amidst the military's limited ground operations which are currently underway. So a barrage of rockets have landed in northern Israel in a place called Safed, which is an Israeli army position. The Hezbollah on the back foot following the killing of its leader Hassan Nasrallah on September the 28th, the destruction of many of its positions and combat capabilities, but still being able to fire rockets and missiles into Israel at this point of time. That appears to be the message. But remember, the big escalation that we're talking about right now is centered around 181 ballistic missiles that were fired by Iran into Israel yesterday. By far the biggest escalation so far in this West Asian crisis. Iran claims this attack is in retaliation for the killing of the Hezbollah chief. The Hezbollah, as you know, is a group that is backed and funded by Iran. Israel has now vowed to make Iran pay, but the latter has warned it would trigger only a bigger escalation and retaliation. Is the world on the cusp of a wider war? Iran rains missiles on Israel. Nearly 200 missiles light up the night sky on Tuesday, triggering alert signs across major cities and towns of Israel. While most of the Iranian missiles were intercepted by Israel's layered air defense systems, a few did hit their targets. Including key Israeli air bases, as claimed by the Iranian military. Israel says Iran will pay.
Iran made a big mistake tonight, and it will pay for it. The regime in Iran does not understand our determination to defend ourselves and our determination to retaliate against our enemies. Sinwar and Dev didn't understand it. Nasrallah or Mohsen didn't understand it. Apparently, there are those in Tehran who do not understand this either. They will understand. We will keep to the rule we have determined. Whoever attacks us, we attack them.
Iran is calling this unprecedented attack revenge for the killing of Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah and others.
Recent evil acts by this criminal regime that martyred commanders and leaders and the great fighter His Excellency Hassan Nasrallah, the oppressed children of Gaza and resilient oppressed people of Lebanon start Operation True Promise 2 with code name O Messenger of Allah.
Iran has warned Israel of a bigger attack if Israel were to retaliate now. This is the most fearsome Iranian attack since the West Asia War first began last year. If Israel hits back at Iran, it could spark a wider war in the region. With Ashraf Wani in southern Lebanon, Bureau Report, India Today. Well, amidst the dozens of airstrikes that have been conducted by the Israeli Air Force in southern Lebanon, one hit an elementary school in a place called Gedera. Take a look at this exclusive report.
So you can see behind me, this is the extensive damage to a school in Israel at Gedera. And here behind me was a ceremony of a Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, just hours before the ballistic missile with about 500 kilos of explosive hit this area. Just think about that, if it would happen a few hours later. So here is another class that was damaged by the missile attack from Iran. This is just one ballistic missile that hit the ground in the courtyard of this school, and fortunately no children were here. But just hours before, in the same place was a ceremony of the New Year, the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. And just imagine what could happen if the ballistic missile of Iran would hit at this time. Here is a school at Gedera in Israel where one of the ballistic missiles that Iran launched towards Israel hit. And this is the epicenter. The classes where children should be studied are devastated, are destroyed. But fortunately, because the attack was in the evening, no children were here, and that's why there are no casualties. But it could happen at morning time, daytime, and then hundreds of children could have been dead because of this missile attack by Iran on Israel.
Like the Hezbollah, the Hamas and the Houthis, Iran has a vast conventional combat strength, and the missiles that were used yesterday were some of its most advanced. Let's take a look at the missile arsenal that currently exists in Iran at this point of time, at least as far as open source information is concerned. Iran has a vast fleet of ballistic missiles that it has used against Israel. These are missiles that basically use a ballistic trajectory, which basically go up in a parabolic trajectory and then fall onto their target. They can be maneuvered in some small ways using propulsion systems, but usually their targets are set right from the get-go. They typically weigh between 760 to about 1,200 kilograms. We're talking about the Iranian missiles. Then there are cruise missiles, which are basically almost like aircraft. They take off sometimes vertically or otherwise from an inclined launcher. They take a cruise path, which is basically, instead of a ballistic trajectory, they take a cruise path which is following the level of the Earth, pretty much like an aircraft, towards their target. They are propelled continuously by aircraft like jet engines and remain within Earth's atmosphere. They can be maneuvered, they can be guided quite a bit, unlike ballistic missiles. They typically weigh, in the Iranian perspective, about 410 kilograms. Apart from these long-range drones, which are capable of being navigated across long distances towards their targets, are another weapon. They're much more slow-moving. They're similar to cruise missiles, but they're smaller, less complex, but much more maneuverable. They typically weigh far less than ballistic and cruise missiles. These have been used not only by Hezbollah and Iran, but also by the Houthis, which have brought to bear quite a bit of such weaponry towards Israel. I want to bring in India Today's Gaurav Sawant, who has reported from this region extensively. Gaurav, We've just told our viewers about the kind of weapons that Iran has brought to the fight since last night, ballistic missiles. They also have other capabilities that they have shown off through their proxies, the Hamas, the Hezbollah and the Houthis. Your perspective, Gaurav, on what could be happening next? What are the big questions to ask when we look at the hours following yesterday's missile strikes on Israel?
Shiv, the biggest question is how will Israel respond? Will Israel, in the fact that more than 181 missiles were fired at Israel and each choosing a strategic target, whether the attempt was to target the Mossad headquarters or the 3 air bases from where the fighter jets were launched either to kill Hassan Nasrallah or Mossad, the role that it is alleged to have played in the pager attacks on Hezbollah or Ismail Haniyeh's killing in Tehran. So Israel wanted to make a strategic point that it has the ability to strike. While it may have made that strategic point, the fact that Jake Sullivan, US NSA, says that this was a defeated operation, it did not have the desired impact, and the fact that it's angered Israel into taking some very critical measures in response. The biggest question would be, will Israel want to take out just the oil, strength of Iran? Would it want to take out the power structure? Would they want to take out Ayatollah Ali Khamenei or the leadership of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps? Or would they want to go after the big kill and take out that nuclear power that Iran aspires to be? Will it be something as ambitious, or will it be some or all of the above? Because the manner in which Israel has gone in the past 1 year, Shiv, as you've well seen, taking out the leadership of Hamas, destroying the leadership of Hezbollah, targeting the Houthi rebels and their oil assets. So very systematically, Israel's attempt is to degrade the adversary and degrade the ability of the adversary to strike Israel once again. Now, former Prime Minister of Israel, has very clearly said, this is an opportunity that comes once in 50 years. It's time to take out Iran as a nuclear power. Will Israel do that? Remains the biggest question right now.
Will Israel do that is the big question right now, amidst a huge number of variables, including the United States that has a huge presence in the region. Gaurav, thanks for the moment. Remember, Gaurav will be reporting from Ground Zero very soon, so watch out for his reports as well. The Middle East, West Asia, has become a smoking war right now where things could widen into a much larger conflict. This could become something like a world war if it isn't contained very, very quickly. Israel faces attacks from Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and Yemen. Will Israel be able to successfully respond in 7 different directions at 7 different potential targets and entities? What will be the impact on the world if this West Asia conflict is not contained to just this region? Take a look at this report.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
Iran enters the war. Firing nearly 200 missiles into Israel on Tuesday. The Middle East conflict is intensifying.
Iran made a big mistake tonight, and it will pay for it. The regime in Iran does not understand our determination to defend ourselves and our determination to retaliate against our enemies. Nasrallah or Mohsen didn't understand it. They will understand. Whoever attacks us, we attack them. If the Zionist regime that has gone crazy is not controlled by America and Europe and wants to continue these crimes or wants to do anything against our sovereignty and territorial integrity, tonight's operation will be repeated several times stronger, and all their infrastructure will be targeted.
nearly 200 missiles fired. Iran used their Fateh-2 hypersonic missile, and the targets were crucial air bases in Israel and the Mossad headquarters. This attack was aimed at overwhelming Israel's Arrow defense system, making it the biggest Iranian attack on Israel since April. Seven nations in West Asia are now fully embroiled in a multi-front war. But there are three sides to every war: the good, the bad, and the ugly. A glimmer of hope in the absence of fatalities in Israel and Iran. The successful interception of missiles is a big boost for Israel, and its multi-layered defense systems prevented the major loss of life. Iran's attack could force Israel to turn up the heat on their rivals. The IDF's Gaza and Lebanon raids are on in full swing, and this will undermine ceasefire proposals there. Not just that, pressure will reduce on Israel now to halt their offensive. And the ugly impact of war is that Iran's Tuesday retaliation against Israel can lead to a full-blown war. This Iranian attack is the biggest since April on Israel, and the use of the Fateh-2 ballistic missile has triggered alarm. The biggest impact of full-scale war will ultimately be the destabilization of global economies. With Ankit Kumar, Bureau Report, India Today.
And as part of our continuous look for voices to get us through this story, to explain better what's happening, you've just heard from the ambassador of Israel to India, Reuven Azar. Now we have live with us Kobi Shoshani. He's the Consul General of Israel in Mumbai. Kobi, welcome. Thank you very much for being with us here on India Today. It's a difficult time. It's the Jewish New Year. So first of all, a very happy New Year to you. I wish these circumstances were different, for your country, for the region as well. What kind of damage, my first question to you, Kobi, is what kind of damage has been done on the ground? There are all kinds of claims and counterclaims as to what Iran has managed to do last night by firing 181 missiles into your country.
Yesterday, it was a very dramatic evening in Israel, definitely dramatic. I spoke to Israel. I have a family in Israel. Most of them, all over Israel, were in the shelters. Don't forget that tonight actually is the New Year Eve of the Jewish holiday. According to the Jewish tradition, this year is going to be the universe, the birthday of the universe. The God created the world, and it's a very happy days in Israel. Most of the people were more than 2 hours in a shelter all over the country, from south to north, from the center and to the west. That was the situation. As you mentioned before, 200 ballistic missiles sent from Iran. I don't know how to define it as a failure or a success. I think it was a completely big failure of the Iranian technology. We are intercepted most of the missiles, and it showed and it strengthened the relations between the United States and Israel, and of course other allies, to understand the risk of Iran, the negative role that Iran played in the Middle East. That was the most important thing. Now, concerning the reaction, it's going to be, and our Prime Minister make it very, very clear. Reaction will come. Sorry. Because of such incident, severe incident. And don't forget that last night it was also a terror attack in Israel, when 5 Israeli killed or murdered by a gun machine in the center of Tel Aviv. That was our life today in our new year, and we will retaliate, as the Prime Minister make it very clear, and also the military.
What are those options of response, Kobi, at this point of time? How do you think Israel can or will react and respond to the Iranian attack?
I think that the Prime Minister, I don't want to enter into operational information. I tell you frankly, I don't know. I think it's right now it's a discussion in the military cabinet. along with allies and of course with our cabinet and the prime minister and the ministers. It's going to be a reaction, that's definite. I will be very surprised if it won't be any reaction. We'll find the time and the target. And I think people needs to be prepared for that.
You know, Iran has been making some pretty dramatic claims. They've said that they've been able to hit the Mossad headquarters and 3 air bases, Nevatim, Hatzarim and Tel Nof in Israel. They're talking about, large-scale damage to aircraft on the ground. Can you comment on that? Israel has denied it, but, is the truth somewhere in the middle?
First of all, I tell you frankly, I don't know the reality. I spoke to some friends in Israel. They were in the cities, and some of the missiles that actually launched from Iran landed not far away from their home, and no military base there. I saw photos from a school that actually burned. I saw interception in the skies of Israel towards Israeli cities. My kids, they live in Jerusalem. It was a siren in Jerusalem. The people ran to the shelters. In Jerusalem, there is no military base. Then I think that this is trying to give, I think that's my assumption. The Iranian tried to give to their supporter some sort of success this way or another. I don't think that this is the reality. The reality that most of the missiles were intercepted by the best missile interception system in the world. That is what I know.
But were these air defense systems completely successful? It does appear that a large number of these missiles were intercepted by the Iron Dome and the David Sling system, and maybe the Arrow even, Kobi. But how successful was the air defense? Because it looks like Iran, knowing that if it launches a large number of missiles at the same time, it will be able to, in some ways, get some missiles past that air defense net. Is that what happened?
Yes, I tell you frankly, the pressure over Iran is extremely hard. And it's come from the Arab and the Muslim world. First of all, there is a lot of reaction in the Arab world that says that the Iranians didn't care about their allies, about their proxies that they dealing with Israel since October 7th. We saw what's happened in Lebanon in the last month. We saw what's happening in Gaza. They send their proxies, like Yemen, sending missiles and UAVs to Israel to bring terrorism to Israel by air. Now, the pressure and I saw the celebration in Lebanon and in Syria about what's happened to the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah. The celebration and the messages that I got from people in the Arab world. Congratulations, continue with it. This is a pressure that the Iranians understand right away, and they need to show some sort of success. But fortunately, in the Israeli perspective, the system that we built throughout the years, the allies that we have with democratic countries, help. And right now, I don't think that they have such a success that they try to show themselves.
Final question, Kobi, before I let you go. Speaking of allies and democratic countries, do you see some kind of a role for India going forward? India, you're based in India, you're in Mumbai. India is a country that has very close relations with Israel. It has very close relations with Iran as well, strategic ties with both these countries. Do you see some kind of a role for India in resolving this conflict?
First of all, I agree with you. I think that we have a very good relation, and I think that you have good relations with Iran, which is okay with our point of view. I think India, in my point of view, and I think that your Prime Minister make it in a very, very clear voice, has a role in the Middle East and also in the peace process. In my point of view, India and of course the United States playing a very positive role, bringing peace to the Middle East. We need peace. Everybody needs peace. I think it's good for economy. And I think that the influence of India in the world is extremely important for us.
Kobi Shoshani, thank you very much for speaking to us here on India Today and taking our questions. We will stay connected. Thanks for your time here on India Today. Now, remember, the Israeli Defense Forces are conducting not only airstrikes in southern Lebanon, but they're also conducting a limited ground operation into Hezbollah-held territory in the southern part of that country. The Israeli Defense Forces has led a successful incursion to expose Hezbollah tunnels, very much like the tunnels that were seen in Gaza. These tunnels often cross over the rugged mountainous terrain of the Galilee region to penetrate into Israel. Back in 2018, the Israeli Defense Forces exposed 6 offensive tunnels built and excavated into Israeli territory under Operation Northern Shield. 6 years later, they've once again laid bare the extensive network of Hezbollah tunnels that connect the central headquarters in Beirut area and the logistical operational rear base in the Bekaa area in southern Lebanon. Take a look.
On 1st October, Israel released footage of what it called Hezbollah's underground infrastructure, or in simpler terms, tunnels. The Israeli army has been carrying out secretive ground operations to destroy these infrastructures in Lebanese villages close to its border for the past 1 year.
One of the buildings that our troops raided, we found proof of this. This is a map that Hezbollah planned to give its terrorists at the time of a wide-scale invasion into the state of Israel, as part of its Conquer the Galilee plan to carry out an October 7th massacre in Israel's north. As you can see on the map, there is a key marking Israeli communities, IDF posts, access roads, and targets for attack. We found this map on one of the compounds that was supposed to be used by thousands of Hezbollah terrorists on the day they carried out their invasion.
The videos filmed on troops' body cameras revealed Hezbollah tunnels under the Lebanese villages. Israel claimed that the tunnels lie across the border from 3 Israeli towns. Tel Aviv now prepares to present its findings and evidence discovered under homes in southern Lebanon to the international community.
Hezbollah planned to launch their October 7th attack from villages across southern Lebanon, where they have been building up their arms capabilities and forces for the last 2 decades. Hezbollah also dug tunnels under homes in these villages close to the border with Israel.
In the wake of ground incursions, IDF ordered the residents of about 30 border villages in South Lebanon to evacuate. It vows to continue with the raids until tens of thousands of uprooted Israelis living near the border can return safely to their homes.
We'll do it as fast as we can, and we will take down the threat. It's a threat next to our border. Any other sovereign country will do the same. This is a murderous terror organization in the size of an army, and we will take care of it. We will push Hezbollah back from border. Our citizens, our civilians in the north should live in safe and security, and we'll make it happen.
While it is estimated that the Israel Defense Forces have eradicated roughly 80% of Hamas's tunnels, Hezbollah's tunnels, which have largely remained untouched since the war in Gaza began, are believed to be far more sophisticated and significantly larger. They allow Hezbollah to move large number of missiles and vehicles around southern Lebanon undetected. IDF is now all set to destroy it.
So you've seen what's been happening through these ground operations and airstrikes in southern Lebanon, the concerns from the Israeli side about pushing the Hezbollah back. But we take you completely up close to exactly where the Hezbollah headquarters is. India Today's Ashraf Wani was there just a few moments ago to send us this world-exclusive ground report from the site where the Hezbollah operated from, and not very far from where Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of the Hezbollah, was killed in an airstrike just a few days ago. Take a look at this.
I'm currently standing and am the first international journalist from India today who is at the Hezbollah headquarters here in South Beirut. Behind me you can see this was the 6-story building when Hassan Nasrallah, Secretary General of Hezbollah, was taking a meeting of his commanders in the basement, which was underground almost 15 feet below the ground, where he was taking that meeting. 2,000 pounds of bombs dropped on this building by the F-15 warplanes, which completely brought this building on ground. And after the efforts for 4 days, finally the body of and we would like to take some details from here from the people of leaders, what really happened here, and what happened after this blast, and what was its impact not only here but also in the periphery. In fact, since then there is regular airstrikes in this area, suburbs of Beirut, and today on Wednesday, 7 airstrikes were carried out by the IDF. Yesterday, a television station was targeted, its building compound was targeted, that collapsed in that attack, and today a communication tower has been targeted in this area, and we are facing the internet problems in this particular area here in the Beirut. Ashrafani for this World Expo for India Today. I'm currently standing here in the street of Beirut. This is the main highway of Beirut city, and you can see on right side of me a long queue of the motor cars. These motor cars are not parked here, but actually the families with their car have left after our yesterday evening, when there was a series of attacks from Iran as well as from Hezbollah on Israel. The people are in the fear, and that is why for last many days, since Friday, they are spending most of the nights in these open areas so that they could not become the victims of the Israeli targets. During the night, 4 aerial strikes were carried out by Israel in the suburb of Beirut, which is the stronghold of Hezbollah, but the local population has already vacated from that area, and they have moved to some other safer places. In the vicinity, the people who can't afford to leave their homes during the night period, they come out in the cars, then stay for the night in the open, and when the day begins, they again start their work and try to be in the safer areas. But despite all this, the people here in the Lebanon, particularly in the Beirut, now believe that there will be more such aerial attacks, which the Beirut as well as the South Lebanon is witnessing since last many days will intensify. Ashrafani, for India Today in Beirut.
But what are the precise targets in Iran that Israel could actually strike back in its response? Because the one thing that is clear right now is that Israel cannot just sit and ignore what happened last night. So what could it possibly do? I'll show you with a global expert. The big question that faces the world right now is, how will Israel react to what happened last night? The barrage of missiles from Iran hitting Israel have meant that a response is virtually certain. But what form is it going to take? How is it going to spill over into the region? What impact is it going to have in the world? We've brought you perspectives from all over India and in different parts of Israel, Iran, and the United States. But I also wanted to bring in the perspective of a very well-known Indian journalist based in Abu Dhabi, who has won several awards reporting conflict in the region and has traveled to many of these countries that we are talking about at this point of time. Welcoming Anjana Shankar, senior journalist with The National in Abu Dhabi, onto our coverage here. Anjana, good to see you. Thank you for your time here on India Today. My first direct question, Anjana, is how do you see the next few days play out? It's nearly a year since this cycle of the conflict began with that Hamas attack last year. Last night, Iran stepped directly into this fight with nearly 200 missiles fired into Israel. As a journalist based in the region, how do you see what happens next?
Hi, thank you, Shiv, for having me. Definitely the contours of the conflict has changed overnight with yesterday's attack that we saw from Iran. So far, what in the past 1 year, as you mentioned, what we have seen is Iran fight the war with Israel, whether it is in Hamas in Palestine, whether it is Hezbollah in Lebanon, or even the Houthi rebels in Yemen. But
Yes.
with this attack, what has happened is it's very clear. It is the clearest sign that we have so far that the region is edging over a full-blown out war. Israel has already made it very clear that this brazen attack from Iran, that they are going to retaliate. They will choose the time and place where they want to attack. And we have to assume that it is almost certain that Israel will react, will retaliate to this attack on its sovereign territory. But the question is when and how. And Iran has already stated that this attack that they staged last night, this barrage of attacks, this is a very strategic and restrained attack on all the escalations that Israel has done. So the question is, if Israel attacks, which Israel will, what will be Iran's reaction? Iran has said if there is a retaliation from Israel, they are going to go on a second volley of attack on Israel. So there is definitely a fear that the Middle East is on the edge of a full-blown out war.
You're based in the United Arab Emirates, Anjana. How is the UAE looking at this particular escalation and what lies ahead?
So UAE is a country which has been batting for a ceasefire. UAE has been negotiating with, talking with the US and other parties involved to make sure that the only durable solution to this crisis is a two-state solution in Palestine. There has to be an escalation. There has to be a ceasefire. But now the question is, I think we are also asking how much has diplomacy succeeded in addressing this conflict, whether it is the US efforts, because US has consistently said over the past 1 year, with all the shuttle diplomacy that we have seen and all the other parties, including other Gulf countries that have played a part in pushing Israel and Hamas to come onto the table and to sign a ceasefire deal, which hasn't happened. What we have seen is only an escalation instead.
Considering that Israel has, a number of different options right now, the one thing that we can be reasonably sure about, Anjana, I don't know if you agree with me, is that an escalation is likely. It doesn't seem like now is going to be the point of de-escalation. It does seem like things are going to escalate from this point on. As a journalist who has traveled extensively, in the Middle East, as a reporter and as a journalist who's been there, does it feel like this is just the next cycle of conflict and nothing is ever really going to end? There will finally be some kind of brokered ceasefire, but ultimately nothing is ever resolved.
I am quite tempted to take quite a pessimistic take on this, Shiv, as you said.
Yes.
We have seen these conflicts escalate, then de-escalates, there are ceasefires, but essentially we have never seen a durable, a long-term solution to the problems that Middle East faces, especially stemming from the Israel-Palestinian conflict, a very complicated, complex conflict which goes back to decades. And this is a new and a different level of escalation that we saw on October 7th. And I think what is different this time is how different parties are getting involved. There is Hamas, there is Hezbollah from Lebanon, and there is Houthi rebels also. All of them getting into and jumping into the fray and turning it into a bigger, wider war in the region. And from Israel's point of view, after an October 7 attack, now they are fighting a multi-front war. A few days ago, they had their fighter jets flew thousands of miles to attack Hodeidah port, which is under the Houthi control, because Houthis have been waging a proxy war, attacking the shipping lines in the Red Sea in order to express their solidarity with their Palestinian brothers. And Hezbollah, I think Israel has definitely become emboldened with some of their back-to-back successes, military successes that we have seen. The pager attacks inside Lebanon, which kind of crippled a lot of Hezbollah fighters. The annihilation of the Hezbollah leader that we saw last week. So definitely it is an emboldened Israel that we see now. It's a brazen Netanyahu who is kind of drunk on war. And so Israel has made it very clear now that restraint is not the name of the game that they're playing with.
Restraint is not the name of the game.
So there's little hope at the moment, unless we see a miracle, there is a diplomatic miracle, and then we see there is some sort of de-escalation, like what we saw in April after there was an attack by Iran, because this is the second missile attack from Iran, one which was in April. There was a major fear at that time that this is an escalation. But, after months, there was no response back from Iran after Israel hit them back. There was a de-escalation. So we have to wait and expect that there could be some sign of miracle this time.
I agree with you. Restraint doesn't seem to be the name of the game, and especially with Israel seeing, American pressure forcing restraint in April, not being the same kind of pressure that they're facing now, means that an escalation is virtually certain. It's only a question of what form that escalation will take. But I think, Anjana, we're going to hear much more from you in the days ahead as we continue to decode this conflict with voices such as yours in the region. For the moment, though, thank you very much, Anjana, for your time and your inputs on this unfolding story that has an impact not just on the region, but all across the world.